Okay, great. So I think that all presenters are here. Apologies to the attendees for this testing, but we had to. I think we can start. Let me share my screen. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So welcome you all in our today's session. We are going to explore together the interoperability approaches in food supply chain. I am Angeliki Milioti. I am Dissemination, Exploitation and Communication Manager at Smart AgroHub, a competence center in agriculture in Greece. I'm working also for TRUSTFOOD. Actually, this workshop today is co-organized by two projects. The one project is a Digital Europe project. It is called TRUSTFOOD, and the other one is DIS4SME. TRUSTFOOD is about advancing blockchain skills for food supply chain. It addresses mainly employees in SMEs. We are going to develop some courses that will be available online. For DIS for SME, Giacomo is going to present some things later on. Here you can see the agenda for today's event. As you can see, we are going to give a brief presentation on blockchain in the food supply chain. And then this presentation will be given by Dr. Domesticas and Dr. Cholis. And then Giacomo Martinaro will give a presentation about location interoperability in food market and agriculture. I propose to have the Q&A session after the presentation. And for this reason, I encourage you to use the Q&A box, which you can see in the upper side of your screen. So feel free to pose your questions. And after the presentations, our experts will be here to answer your questions. So I think that maybe we could start with the first one. I don't know, Professor Domesticas, can you share your screen or would you like to share mine?
Yes, I will try sharing my screen.
We can see it, yes.
Okay. Now, is it the correct mode or yes?
Yes.
Great. So thank you very much, Angeliki, for the invitation and for the introduction. Good morning to everyone. I am Kostas Domesticas, Assistant Professor at the Informatics Laboratory at the Agricultural University of Athens, and I'm here today with my colleague, Sotiris Karetsos. Both of us lead the work of AUA at the TRUSTFOOD project. So our presentation today focuses on the role of blockchain technology in the interoperability of food supply chains. So we'll start a bit with setting the scene with a general introduction about interoperability, and then move to describing the application of blockchain technology in food supply chains, and then see one of the emerging research topics that we have seen in this period from the literature. Interoperability is the of information system is the ability of applications and systems to securely and automatically exchange data, irrespective of any geographical, political, or organizational boundaries. Coordinated data sharing across organizations and departments is essential in several sectors for research and development, as well as an improved end user experience. Interoperability refers to the standards, protocols, technologies, and mechanisms that allow data to flow between diverse systems with minimal human intervention, and it allows diverse systems to talk to each other and share information in real time. Interoperability solutions reduce the so-called data silos that we all suffer from in various market and also research domains, and help organizations achieve industry-compliant communication. This can lead to increased efficiency and higher quality service offering. So this is a bit of a scene setter for the rest of the presentation. Now, the European Commission has recognized the importance of interoperability in a digitally connected world. So we have initiatives like the Interoperable Europe, the initiative of the European Commission for a reinforced public sector interoperability policy. The corresponding act proposes a strategic interoperability cooperation mechanism across the European Union. The European Interoperability Framework is a commonly agreed approach to the delivery of European public services in an interoperable manner, and it defines basic interoperability guidelines in the form of common principles, models, and recommendations. There is also the widespread initiative of EU data spaces that we come across in various domains, in health, in transport, and more recently also in agriculture, and more recently also in other domains like security. So data interoperability enables actors across the supply chain, moving on to the supply chain, to more easily share data that will help them to coordinate. It can be achieved most effectively through an agreed common interface between different systems. This means that every system needs only to integrate with one common interface for all systems to be able to share data effectively. There are numerous benefits when it comes to the interoperability in the food supply chain. We have an enhanced ability to track food products from farm to fork, ensuring food safety and quality. We can identify faster and respond faster to food safety issues, for example, food products that have to be recalled. We can exchange data faster and more accurately and more easily between the different stakeholders. The coordination and communication between all the stakeholders, so this includes suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, can be improved. We have data available in real time or near real time, which means that we can support better decision making. We can gain insights into various parts of the supply chain, including the consumers and the consumer behavior, the market trends, and the supply chain performance. We can increase transparency and assurance of food quality and safety for consumers. This is something that we focus through our work at AUA in the context of the TRUSTFOOD project. And also we can strengthen the reputation of our brand, of our food product, and the customer loyalty. Now passing to the blockchain technology. Blockchain, as you probably know, is a distributed digital ledger that allows for secure and transparent recording of transactions in a decentralized manner. So this means that there is no need for a central authority. In the context of food supply chains, blockchain technology helps to create a tamper-proof record of the movement of food products. Blockchain can enhance food safety by making the supply chain operations more traceable, sustainable, and transparent. And all the parties involved in the supply chain can have a shared, immutable record of the journey that a particular food item, food product has taken from farm, from its production to fork, to its consumption. So a key notion is that what is written in the blockchain maintains its integrity and it cannot be altered. There are numerous benefits that the application of the blockchain technology can untap. This includes, and we see here a mapping, a correspondence with benefits from interoperability. So we can track food products from farm to fork. We can ensure transparency that can help to quickly identify sources of safety issues like contaminations or food fraud. Thanks to the detailed and immutable records, it becomes easier to manage recalls effectively and ensure that unsafe products are removed from the market. Consumers can use an application to access detailed information about what we saw earlier, the journey, so the origin, the handling, the processing of their food, which increases their trust, helps them make more informed choices, and increases also their loyalty to a particular food product or brand. We have better coordination among supply chain participants, leading to reduced delays and inefficiency. So the supply chain can work, can function better, and we can support real-time tracking of inventory and shipments. Data is secure and tamper-proof, reducing the risk of data breaches and unauthorized access. And we can better automate the record keeping and the various transactions that happen inside the supply chain. So, in essence, interoperability is a core element of the blockchain technology. There is a strong relation between these two concepts. Supply chain related data flows could be stored digitally and in a way that cannot be altered. Multiple stakeholders that are involved in the supply chain and the logistics benefit from sharing numerous types of data using blockchain technology. Of course, the data that they wish and they permit. And within a supply chain, a stakeholder that needs to verify the validity of past transactions with other stakeholders only downloads the blockchain, so the distributed ledger that we explained earlier, and nothing else. So this history is written in the blockchain. So the blockchain can support the interoperability in the food industry, as we said, from FARC, so from the production, from the farmer side up to the consumer side, up to the fork, either in at home or in restaurants, wherever food is consumed. So stakeholders who participate in the food supply chain need to decide what kind of data they will share among them. So this is crucial because Of course, the applicability of the blockchain technology can be agnostic of the actual food supply chain, but what we strive and what we need is to really determine the exact types of data that we should track in each part of this chain, because when it comes to different products, the needs also for this for tracking this journey are different. So looking at the farmer side, some examples of farmer data that we can track. Of course, in TRUSTFOOD, this is something that we look into for particular types of products in more detail. So at the farmer side, we can include crop data, so the type of crop, the variety, the sowing date, the harvest date. Data from the field, so locations, field sizes, the soil types, soil composition and characteristics, especially we have measurements, the weather conditions. And also, the farming practices could be important because the food industry as well as the consumers need to know. So this includes the fertilizers, any pesticides that have been tracked and addressed, the water usage, the tillage methods, the crop rotation, and the use of sustainable practices like organic farming. Moving forward to the food processing industry, there are various examples of food processing data that we can track. So this includes the source information, batch numbers, quantities, quality control information and quality reports, the processing steps and dates, what equipment is used, what one simmery and other equipment is used for the processing, what are the prevailing conditions in terms of temperature, humidity, and other conditions that matter for the food processing, the storage conditions and the inventory levels, and any certification records that have been obtained, like organic certifications. Then to moving to the distributors side, examples of distribution data include shipment details, transportation modes, carrier information, any route details, and shipment dates, temperature logs when it comes to more sensitive products, humidity levels, and so on and so forth. So there are numerous possibilities, enormous possibilities, but we have to keep in mind also that most blockchain solutions have been developed in isolation without a standard protocol or cryptographic structure to work with. So this has also led to interoperability problems between different blockchains, because solutions running on different blockchain platforms are typically unable to communicate with one another. So ensuring blockchain interoperability without violating the underlying features of a blockchain is a challenge, and it's, let's say, an emerging and modern research and innovation field. So with blockchains being adopted in a variety of fields and different applications for different types of products and in different food supply chains, there is a need to address the problem of interoperability among different blockchain platforms. Blockchain interoperability can be achieved by formalizing model specifications for the intercommunication between the agricultural layers, and several solutions combining architectures and protocols have been proposed, but it still remains an essential emerging research area. So there is no, let's say, there are possibilities for solutions, but no clear solutions that is well established. So some of the current solutions include cross-chain technology, so solutions such as blockchain bridges that allow for the transfer of assets and data between different blockchains. Layer 0 protocols that operate below the blockchain, a blockchain agnostic layer, and aim to facilitate communication between the different chains. And interledger protocols that are designed to connect various payment schemes, transaction schemes, and blockchains, allowing for seamless transfers. This type of solutions does not come without its own challenges. So this includes security concerns, because interoperability between different blockchains actually increases the attack surface, which means that the vulnerabilities we have the vulnerabilities of one chain, but then we have to consider the vulnerabilities of another chains that we interface and we interoperate with. So essentially, this increases the attack surface. Scalability issues. We need to maintain the efficiency and scalability while managing the cross-chain transactions, which can be challenging because we increase the complexity, and standardization issues because we need to develop universally accepted standards that can accommodate the interests of various different stakeholders. So in conclusion, interoperability is a constant demand for both public and private sectors. Stakeholders of food supply chains can have several benefits from interoperable information systems. Blockchain technology enables interoperability within the food supply chain. There are possible solutions regarding interoperability between blockchain, but it still remains an interesting and open research topic. And it is expected that interoperability among blockchains will create new dynamics, will increase the flexibility in the adoption of blockchain technology in the food supply chain. So thank you very much. And back to you, Angeliki.
Thank you very much, Professor, for this nice presentation. I think we can proceed with the second presentation. In case there will be questions in the Q&A session, I suggest to see them at the end of the session. So, Dr. Tzolis, I don't know if you can share your screen again. We are a bit ahead of time, so take your time and do your presentation.
Can you see my screen here?
Not yet.
Now?
No. It seems like it is doing something, but then it disappears.
Nothing yet, eh? Let's try again. I think it's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And following all the scientific information that has been presented by our colleagues, now we'll see in practice how blockchain is being applied. And this presentation here will shed light on few but good and really working good practices and projects that are applying blockchain technologies in food supply chains across Europe. So the information collected and presented here is trustworthy by long-lasting partners who have applied these technological solutions in everyday workflows. So they know that it's been working, and they know the benefits of using blockchain technologies in their everyday workflows. At first, we will start with the project Cities 2030 by Greenpoint. The main goal of this project is to create a future-proof and effective urban food system and ecosystems via a connected structure, which is built on trust. That is where blockchain comes, with partners encompassing the entire ecosystems. This objective is being achieved via multiple tools, but mainly by an alliance, which is a community of practice supported by a digital platform. And this approach enables innovation actions and enhancements on a pan-European scope with a global reach. And of course, a blockchain-based data-driven management platform which secures intelligence and coordination actions by delivering an accurate real-time digital twin of the whole supply chain. So this digital twin can go from the production to the waste management phase of a food supply chain. So it goes throughout all the stages of the food supply chain. And also, on 4 key enablers of resilience and sustainability, which is security, ecosystem services, the growth, the livelihood of the platform, and the inclusivity. So all these have been achieved through this blockchain and data-driven management platform. How this is working? When a local producer wants to deliver goods to a market, to the store, for example, the local producer receives a digital identity and enters the data about his production of a selected product to the application. He also prepares the delivery documents, digital smart contracts based on blockchain too. The local producer delivers his product directly to the store. The QR code is there. The store accepts the product from the producers by scanning the QR code from his mobile phone, and the data are directly transferred to the store business management system. So it's a transparent process which collects data in all the stages of the food supply chain, and all these data are being depicted by the QR code. A declaration for the product is prepared by the store and placed to packaging so as consumers can track the origin by scanning the QR code. So in this project, in every stage of the food supply chain, from the farmer to the consumer, QR codes are being generated, and each QR code is substituting the initial QR code and wraps data from all the stages in a distributed ledger, in a blockchain. So when the consumer has the final QR code, they can trace back all the data of the product from the roots to the fork, and all this is being the data integrity of the whole procedure is being ensured by the blockchain technology. This is some pictures from the pilot and the real workflow that is being implemented throughout this project. When the customer is scanning the QR code, the information that he receives or she receives is the following: the farmer location, the product certificate if it's applicable, photos of the growth phase, planting or sowing phases, phase of the product grow, harvesting, date of harvesting and delivery to the warehouse store. This is the overall information that can the customer trace back so as to see the origins of the product. This is the first project and good practice. The second is CADS, the Carbon Agri Data Space. This is a project which is multinational, international project with a consortium with the aim to calculate the CO2 emissions produced throughout an agricultural production. Based on this project original issue and problem that was trying to deal with, agriculture is one of the sectors that emits the most greenhouse gases, but also the one that has the greatest potential to store carbon in its simplest form in the soil. So measuring carbon and estimating carbon throughout the agricultural production phases is being considered critical for the environment, of course, but for the farmer also, because the farmer, if he can certify that throughout his production is assessing and monitoring CO2 emissions and provide a trustworthy certificate that the emissions that have been produced is of this value, then this farmer can claim and prove that he is, except of monitoring in a trustworthy way the CO2 emission, also given a certificate of the value of the CO2 emissions that have been produced throughout this production phase. The scope is to build the first European data sharing ecosystem dedicated to carbon measurement in agriculture, monitoring, estimation of CO2 emissions in agriculture. This system was implemented through a combined expertise of data gatherers and providers, data sharing infrastructure builders, and carbon modeling experts. A data sharing ecosystem has been implemented, which gives to farmers an opportunity to leverage the use of the data they already produced, combined with other data sources. So the overall rationale was not only to have data from individual farmers or from individual farming management systems, but data that are being collected from all the farmers and farming systems to be available to third parties, other farmers, and so as to calculate better the CO2 emissions of their own agricultural productions. So if you see it in a very focused way, you can see that in the repository you can find the emissions that have been, for example, produced by certain agricultural machines for the production, for example, of sea buckthorn. And this data for the same machines can be shared to other farmers which are doing the same production or relevant productions with the same or relevant agricultural machines. So all this data can be leveraged and used by farmers and key stakeholders that would like to calculate CO2 emissions in a trustworthy way and prove that these emissions have been minimized, for example, throughout their production. Of course, this also is very beneficial for post-farm gate stakeholders like manufacturers, retailers, regulatory bodies who have a range of data needs according to their role in this value chain. The solution was based on a data sharing ecosystem, which is based on blockchain technology, amongst others. It provides farmers with tools that help them to come up with tangible proof of their carbon impact. And the general solution is deployed using an infrastructure, which is an open data share repository. The blockchain techniques and protocols are used mainly for service orchestration, which is the problem here is we have heterogeneous data from various farming management systems and from farmers. This data should be processed, homogenized, interoperable, and visualized through this data repository. So blockchain and distributed ledgers have been used so as to improve the tokenization of this data and the interoperability and homogenization of this data, so as this data to be further used by third parties. farmers are not directly involved as members of the consortium of the project, but are involved through the data they feed the system. They feed the system with data. The data space now has farmers from Greece, Spain, Ukraine, and France, which are feeding the system with data. The system, the data repository in the middle of this picture is doing the homogenization and the decentralization of the management. And of course, it's enhancing the data integrity of the whole system. The farmers have user interfaces, web user interfaces and mobile user interfaces, which can help them to give input to the data repository and get the CO2 emissions, the calculation of the CO2 emissions that their agricultural production is producing. So, as a final service, the farmer has a CO2 emissions calculator with which he can do some input about his production and take some output about the estimated CO2 emissions of their production. This is being offered through web or mobile applications. Let's go now to Crane, to Electrodo project and software. Is a platform which the initial objective is to manage ESG data, environmental, social, and governance data that are being produced and used by companies, investors, and key stakeholders. So ESG data availability, integrity, and reliability is very critical to any sector of any company. This also stands the same for the agricultural sector. In this sense, Electrodo as a project digitizes and automates the collection, processing, verification, and sharing of ESG data. And of course, it solves the problem of this data availability, integrity, and reliability. So using blockchain technologies, Electrodo is trying to enhance the trustworthiness of ESG data, and as a result, this data to be better optimized and better exploited by the companies and the key stakeholders that are using this platform. This is the overall infrastructure and architecture of the system. The specific benefits for the smart agro and smart food industries is tamper-proof document storage. So it has a lot of benefits for smart contracts. Smart contracts are very critical for the food supply chains because each contract follows each good and product from the farm to the fork in the various phases and stages of the food supply chain. So having tamper-proof documents and smart contracts in this process is giving an extra potential and an extra benefit and advantage regarding the trustworthiness of the whole procedure and the whole process. Also, it helps the secure document sharing between the key stakeholders and entities that take part in this supply chain, and of course, the transparent document management. So this is an application mainly for smart documents and trusted documents in the smart agro and smart food industry. This is, for example, the user interface that the key stakeholder and the entity can use so as to produce the smart contract. This platform has a special add-on, let's say it like this, the Electrodocs software, which can help agri companies to track and manage their environmental impact, document and manage their social impact, demonstrate transparency and accountability, and facilitate collaboration on ESG initiatives. Also, the Electrodocs could be used to track the movement of food products from farm to fork. It has this possibility too, and could be used to store and manage documents and contracts related to compliance, such as food safety regulations. Let's go now to Greece, to our case study. In the food supply chains in Greece, the supply chains face many issues, which issues have to do mainly with the reliability of information. And reliability of information is reflected to the consumer's trust. So if we want to gain the consumer's trust, we have to give them reliable and trustworthy information for the products. This is affecting all the supply chain in Greece. Today, in most traditional information systems in agriculture, these information systems track and store orders and deliverables without using blockchain technology. And the overall issue was, and the goal was, these information systems to be reinforced and supported by blockchain security so as to enhance this feature of trust, which eventually adds value to the final product. Adding blockchain features to the traditional information systems in agriculture improves food quality and safety, so are requested by the consumers and the customers. If we take now, for example, in Rezos, the food supply chain, we have several stages. In each stage, data are being produced, which data should be documented, preserved in the long term, and of course, being offered to a final application to the customer and the consumer, so as to trace back the whole history of the product from the farm to the fork. So in each stage, the data that are being produced have been documented, and these data have been digitized and have been wrapped into distributed ledgers, so as in each phase, this ledger to be enhanced and expanded, adding information and data produced in each stage. So when we are in the production stage in the farm, several data have been produced by the sensors or mobile applications of the producer that adds data and feeds data to the system. These data have been expanded in the preservation and warehouse phase, expanded in the packaging phase, expanded in the marketing phase. All this data is producing a data stream, which stream is being wrapped in distributed ledgers and is being distributed through the blockchain infrastructure. All these data are now very secure, and the data integrity is being ensured in this way. The customer in the fork, in the market, has a mobile application with which he can trace back all the information and see the origin of the product, where and when and in which location the product has been produced, and the conditions of the warehousing and processing, the time of the delivery and the duration of the delivery, the time of the packaging, the time of the warehousing, and many information relative to the product. So he's been fully informed about the history of the product. Transparency in this way is being enhanced in the agri-food sector. This is a project that proves this and has been applied to the seed-backthorn from Meteora. So seed-backthorn from Meteora that have been produced and packaged in various multiple products. All this information is being stored in blockchain and can be visible and visualized to the final consumer. This decentralized blockchain infrastructure is being hosted by Rezos branch, for example, now, but of course can be further leveraged and be used by other key stakeholders which would like to use this infrastructure. So the overall rationale is not to have an internal blockchain infrastructure to be used only for our product, but to have this data repository open and the blockchain infrastructure open, so as more producers, farmers, individual farmers or associations of farmers and other key stakeholders to use this infrastructure so as to make the traceability of their products visible, and the consumers of their products to be allowed to trace back the history of their goods too. This is some screenshots from the mobile application and what the consumer can see from the traceability features of the mobile application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitris. Very nice presentation. Now we can proceed with Giacomo. Give me 1 second to make you a presenter.
Thank you, Angeliki.
I think that now you can share your screen.
Sure. Can you confirm that you see the screen?
Yes. Great.
Thank you very much for your effort in overcoming some issues we had in the background.
Of course.
So
the floor is yours.
Thank you, Angeliki. Thank you very much, first of all, for having invited our project in this extremely interesting webinar. So DIS4SME is an acronym standing for Data Interoperability Skills for SMEs. And as I will show you in a while, we will focus more on location data interoperability, which, by the way, have been touched upon by the previous presentations in several times and several occasions. So the main goal of this project, which was co-founded within the Digital Europe program, was to organize courses to be delivered in order to upskill and reskill mainly SMEs related target groups. And the approach to design the so-called DIS4SME curriculum was exactly to develop this curriculum short courses based on a series of business case studies according to the requirements of the call for proposal, which are related, so really case-based, related to the following sectors or topics, which, by the way, have been developed in the first semester of the project: the mobile food marketplace, agriculture, so very much related, interlinked with the context of this webinar, but also other sectors like mobility, and digital twins, and BIM and GIS integration. This is just to highlight that these 4 business case studies have been selected after a quite long, so time-consuming, but also effort-consuming process made through interviews with stakeholders of different nature, looking at the technological trends, selecting at the end these 4 among a panel of almost 15 business case studies. Some of them were merged at the end in order to arrive to this final selection of 4 main sectors or topics. And as I was mentioning before, these short courses are aimed at upskilling and reskilling 2 different target groups: the SME owners or managers, and the SMEs technicians and job seekers. So looking at these 2 target groups, you can imagine, starting from this common, from the selected sectors and topics, how differentiation in the courses was needed in order to allow the achievement of learning outcomes for these 2 different target groups, starting from the initial requirements expressed by SMEs owners and managers that they want to be upskilled or reskilled in a very really short and condensed time, and to topics really interacting with the strategies of their companies, whilst the technicians as well as job seekers are much more interested in acquiring, in upskill and reskill themselves in these new technological topics related to data interoperability. The main data interoperability, and when you see data interoperability, please refer always to location data interoperability challenges taken by the business case studies are listed here. So, as we already heard in the previous presentations, data coming from different sources like satellite images, drone footage, fixed camera images, smartphone photos, sensors, different models, but also data, if you can imagine, data coming just from one of the above mentioned sources, but coming from different entities, such as public authorities at national or regional or local level, acting with their own organizational staff, but research organizations, private bodies, citizens, each of them dealing with location data in a different way. But then when you think about only one of the above mentioned sources provided by just one of the above mentioned entities, we can think about data structured and encoded in different ways, or even shared with different modalities and protocols. So all of these are well-known sources of barriers for data interoperability. And of course, when designing our curriculum, we were in a very solid way based on the current trends of European data policy, having with all the instruments having direct or indirect impact on data interoperability. And here you see a roadmap dense of milestones achieved in the last 4 years, starting with the Open Data Directive, the EU data strategy dealing with the common European data spaces mentioned beforehand, but also the Data Governance Act, the high-value datasets as an outcome of the Open Data Directive, but also the Data Act, and last but not least, the Interoperable Europe Act just a few months ago. But having these in mind, this roadmap, in this picture, we selected only the most recent data policy instruments affecting data interoperability. We cannot, of course, forget the INSPIRE roadmap started a long time ago in 2010, which is still providing really solid basis to enable data interoperability according to the very articulated roadmap touching the different components of any spatial data infrastructures, metadata, data services, according to different priorities. And always having in mind the four interoperability layers of the interoperability stack fixed by the European interoperability framework at the basis of the Interoperable Europe Act. So the 4 layers: the legal interoperability, the organizational interoperability, the semantic interoperability, and the technical interoperability, each of them having its own relevance. So the short courses are based on standardized and harmonized procedures, including the formalization of learning outcomes using the Bloom's taxonomy verbs that you can see on the right, this triangle or this pyramid in a 3D space, starting from the bottom layer, let's say used to basically to formalize learning outcomes to transfer knowledge, and then raising up until the vertex of the triangle to transfer real skills. And then we formalized all our learning outcomes using exactly these verbs in order to introduce some harmonization also in our curriculum. But we also used templates to create course metadata to share them in different platforms. Also a peer review process to check the training material in order to ensure that it will satisfy predefined quality criteria, and use of mechanism for the definition and attribution of micro-credentials which we believe is really an important aspect of our project. So the structure of the curriculum, on the left, you see that there are training actions. So we will have 4 training actions, each of them addressing one business case study. And each training action will consist of several courses, and each course consisting of several lectures. Important to mention that lectures here are teaching units consisting of traditional lectures, but also project work, exercises, hands-on, and everything needed to achieve the learning outcomes. Learning outcomes that you see are at the bottom of our structure, because the formalization of the learning outcomes using the Bloom's taxonomy verbs showed before are really the basis on top of which each lecture has been designed. Additional learning outcomes are defined for each course. So at the course level, the achievement of which is assessed to grant micro-credentials. Of course, these learning outcomes defined at the course level are a sort of synthesis, are higher level based on the elementary learning outcomes defined at the bottom to design the single lectures. Very important was the co-creation of courses, the process that we used, and here is a sort of mind map which was used to design the business case study related to agriculture, the so-called intelligent wine production made by our partners in Slovenia, according to which they co-created the basis, the learning outcomes, the basic learning outcomes, interviewing owners, farmers, and several stakeholders having interest or role in the chain of production of wine. And here to see the progress in the design we are currently facing, you see that there is a sort of horizontal course for each of the 4 training actions, which is an introduction to data interoperability common to all the training actions. And here you see that for managers, which of course are not managers of SMEs, are not definitely interested into acquiring real skills in hands-on in technical aspects, but they want to take benefit. They want to really understand the advantages of adopting data interoperability in order to better tailor the digital transformation strategy in their company to increase their business. So here at the course level, 4 learning outcomes have been defined. Understand the context, the concepts and challenges of data interoperability in general and location interoperability in particular. Understand the major EU data policy instruments related to data interoperability. Recognize the major technological and non-technological developments related to location data interoperability, exactly like the blockchain aspects that have been presented so far. And then the last one is really to evaluate how location data interoperability may impact the digital transformation strategy of their organization. You see here the structure, the course with the duration. You see how short courses are really translated into duration which fits the manager's needs. So that the first horizontal course, which will be common to all the training actions, will have a duration of 5 hours, in which you see all the lessons here. And just to give you an example, the last lecture, which in this case is an exercise, which the duration of 2 hours, it's really aimed at allowing the achievement of the 4th learning outcome. And just to give you an idea, you can see, you don't need to focus on the details which are not readable in the image, but you see on the left a sketch of a really precise workflow in order to guide the execution of these 2 hours exercise, in which we have several steps, starting from writing up to 5 statements, max 50 words each, synthesizing the digital transformation strategy already in place or that the manager would like to be applied to her or his SME. Identify and describe at least 2 datasets using the workflows, providing a schematization of the related workflows, specifying, if, for instance, if the datasets are produced or processed internally or externally, and describing the typology of the data providers and customers. Filling in a template prepared by us, a so-called interoperability table, rating, for instance, the implications that the digital transformation strategy from one hand, the datasets used, the relationships with the stakeholders of the SME have on the interoperability layers, the 4 interoperability layers, ranging from 0 to 4, describing for the 2 top implications the measures already in place or to be taken needed to tackle any possible interoperability issue, self-assess the effectiveness of these measures, and then assess the effectiveness of the measure described by another participant to tackle her or his own issues with here the input material provided by the tutor. So you see how structured is the flow of steps and phases in each of the single teaching unit. And here, please refer that the participants will be managers really aiming at evaluating how location data interoperability may impact the digital transformation strategy of their organization. So really a help for them. Regarding the horizontal course for technicians, which is again common to all training actions, you see how we will, the learning outcomes which are still under finalization will aim at transferring more skills than knowledge, so focusing on the upper part of the Bloom's taxonomy. Technical and semantic interoperability layers will be analyzed. And just to make an example, use of OGC, Open Geospatial Consortium, ISO standards from the family 191, also but DCAT or GeoDCAT for open data standards will be deepened, and many others. In terms of example of skills to be transferred in the vertical courses for technicians in the training action for agriculture related business case study, here we are almost at the end of the design of the final exercise to be given. So the skills to be transferred are the calculation of vegetation indexes from Copernicus to detect possible vineyard water stress or other conditions related to plant growth issues. Calibration of the satellite-based simulations with in situ data coming from meteorological stations. Transformation of the calibrated data using data into data structures derived from common data models like the ones derived from Inspire, if not even the core applicable data models. Then performing a semantic harmonization of the transformed data using international vocabularies like AgroVoc, for instance. And finally, integrating the harmonized data into decision support models. Here, I would like to stress the fact that I see a lot of interactions with or let me say a lot of common ground with the presentations given before, because there are many common aspects, common pieces that can benefit each other from the to achieve the final goal. And it is not mentioned here, but the second business case study related to the mobile food market, who is aiming at developing a mobile app following a business to consumer business model to, let's say, to connect local and regional food producers with consumers through location-based services. I see really, I will, after this webinar, I will really recommend our Slovenian partners who is designing, who is finalizing the design of this training action to really get in contact with the authors of the presentations given, the 2 presentations before, because I see really strong opportunity to find an agreement to reuse to some extent the solutions that you already presented to really feed the the content of some of the lectures of the related business case study, and also some hands-on. So really a huge opportunity to further collaborate. In terms of courses delivery, the courses will take place in 5 EU countries of the partners belonging to the consortium, so Belgium, Croatia, Italy, Slovenia, and Spain. The courses will be distributed, as I mentioned before, in 4 training actions based on real cases and customized to the audience in the targeted countries. The training material will consist of video lessons, in some cases slides with notes, but also quizzes, exercises, project works, hands-on, webinars, workshops. Language of training actions will be the national one with training material in English. The expected number of learners enrolled for the training is 450, and the number of learners completing the training is 350. These are, let me say, KPIs fixed in the call, so is a really benchmark for us. The training action will start at the end of 2024, so this year, beginning of 2025, because 2025 will be the last of the 3 years of the project. And the workload of each training action will be approximately in the range of 30-40 hours. First, because the short courses were required in the call, but also because we really would like to benefit a lot on the trends of vocational training in order to really address the target groups that we mentioned, and which have limited time to follow courses. And the attendance will be online in 2 ways: scheduled classes according to calendar, or in an asynchronous self-learning mode. Possibility to organize on-demand face-to-face classes will be also made, especially thanks to the close links we are establishing with the European Digital Innovation Hubs, which are clusters of organizations, projects, communities, which are really manifesting a lot of interest in this type of activities. Very important is the aspects related to the certification of the skills. Our approach concerns the so-called non-formal training activities as defined by the CEDEFOP, learning that takes place through participation in courses and seminars, but without obtaining a qualification. The certification may be issued by the project consortium or the partner delivering the course. These are aspects we are currently dealing with, and is based on the EU micro-credential system. And just to quote here the relevant statements coming from the guideline from European Union. A micro-credential is evidence of learning outcomes achieved by a learner following a short learning experience. These outcomes have been assessed according to transparent standards. The evidence is contained in a certificate which states the name of the holder, the learning outcomes achieved, the method of assessment, the awarding body, and, where applicable, the level of qualifications framework and the credits obtained. The learner holds micro-credentials which are shareable and transferable and can be combined to form broader credentials or qualifications. They are supported by quality assurance practices based on agreed standard. And you see here again how blockchain can play its role in preserving integrity of this type of data contained in the certification. Are recognized and regulated to some extent by the EU Council recommendation of 2022 on a European approach to micro-credentials for lifelong learning and employability, setting some key elements: quality assessment according to internal standard procedures, peer review by external experts; transparency, learning objectives, workload, credits are assigned according to national and EU standards; portability, interoperable data format, digital badges, name tags; relevance, addressing precise labor market needs, the result of co-creation and collaboration between different stakeholders. Training path can be combined to create customized professional profiles. and recognition. They are recognized through standard tools by training and employment authorities that may cover all the competencies of an individual, and not only those acquired through formal training. So you see how this aspect was inspiring all the design of our project curriculum. The standard elements to describe a micro-credential, you see here are listed, coming is an annex to the EU document. And you see that we highlighted here, for instance, the learning outcomes and the type of quality assurance, as all of them are deeply taken into account in our process. And it's important to mention here that the approach to build the curriculum, starting from the formalization of precise learning outcomes as the building blocks for the design of the overall training action, was followed very, very closely. Last, the digital badge. At the end of the course, the learner receives a micro-credential through a digital badge, which offers detailed, readable, and transparent representation of the skills acquired. They contain the metadata of the micro-credential according to Annex 1 of the recommendation, which we listed before, and they can be shared on Europass, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Last slide, where we are here, this is our roadmap. We started the 1st January 2023 for a 3-year project. So we identified the business case studies. We spent a lot of time specifying the methodology and tools to be used in the design. We listed the courses to be developed, the curriculum, describing each course with its own metadata, defining the target profiles, consolidating the horizontal learning outcomes common to all the 4 vertical ones, consolidating the business case studies learning outcomes for all the training action, updating the horizontal ones, because once we enter into the details of the 4 sectors, then it emerged the opportunity to benefit from the horizontal ones, to provide common, to transfer common skills for the next more tailored, sector-tailored, case-tailored activities. And we are exactly in the here in the stage to finalize the design of the curriculum, starting developing the training material. Then we will have in the 2025 finally the enrollment, delivery, and certification, and then also important the course evaluation, because we will learn a lot of lessons that will allow us to improve for also a long-term sustainability and exploitation plan of our work. Thank you very much for your attention. Follow us and stay tuned, because in the next months, the final courses and the ways to enroll will be announced on our channels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giacomo, very much. Very nice presentation. We are ahead of time. I think we can proceed with the Q&A session. I see that there is one question. Christina asks, she says, good morning. Thank you for the interesting workshop and all the useful insight and information. Can you please share with us the most common disadvantages, difficulties in blockchain technology in the agri-food sector? Whoever wants to answer.
Yes, hello. From hands-on practice, because blockchain, so as to have this data integrity part, it's very crucial to have some IoT sensors and technologies to feed the system with data produced by devices, and not to be at the most of the part as user-generated content, because user-generated content many times has mistakes. So, for example, for the agricultural sector, in the farm. We have the sensors which are producing automatically data that are stored directly to the blockchain infrastructure. We are sure that this data, because we are inspecting the sensors, are okay and correct. So in the traceability data, this information is trustworthy. The user-generated information sometimes has to be moderated. So you just have to have a look to this issue. If you have user-generated content by mobile applications throughout the infrastructure, the blockchain infrastructure, this is a challenge. Because this is in a way transforming the value chain. You put a quality control that you didn't have initially, so is a disadvantage. Of course, for companies and the stakeholders that do not have sensors, the initial cost of this equipment might be a burden. And the infrastructure, of course, of the blockchain is costly at an initial cost and has a sustainability cost too. So you have to take into account these financial, economical issues that blockchain infrastructure is provoking. And I think these are the two main challenges and disadvantages: the financial burden and the burden in the workflows of a company that applies this in its everyday life and function.
Thank you, Dimitris. I think you covered the question. In case there are more questions, participants can ask for clarifications in the Q&A box. Another question for Giacomo from Professor Karechos is if you had any issues collecting data for the micro-credentials.
Okay, let me clarify that according to our project schedule, one specific task of micro-credentials should start really now. So many aspects will be properly dealt with in the starting from now. We decided to anticipate as much as possible in order to explore the micro-credentials aspects, in order to understand beforehand to what extent the micro-credential system could affect the design of our curricula. Therefore, we gained, let's say, experience in knowledge, let me say, in going through the EU recommendation, and for the time being, we are, let's say, we feel comfortable looking at how we are closely designing our curricula to satisfy the criteria of micro-credentials. So for the time being, we didn't touch at all, let me say, the aspect mentioned by the professor, and let's say we are ready to face any issue. For the time being, we are more concentrating in understanding the mechanism to be enabled to grant micro-credentials. And we know, for instance, that there are many organizations having established platforms, digital platforms, to release the micro-credentials with the digital badges. But we are currently in contact with people from DG Employment, for instance, at the Commission, because we would like to stay as much close as possible to the mechanisms and the possibilities recognized directly by the Commission. And so we are in an exploration phase. Okay,
thank you, Giacomo. I don't see any other question in the Q&A box. So from my side, I would like to thank you all for your presentations today. I think that they were very interesting. I would like also to thank all the participants that participated today. And also I would like to encourage all of you to follow both projects in social media, TRUSTFOOD and DIS4SME, in order to stay updated for future webinars and activities. The truth is that both projects are very active, so it will be very nice if you follow us, both projects. In case there are questions, you can contact us. You can find us on LinkedIn or use our email, etc. I will leave my email here. And if there is any question, I can forward it to the speakers. So thank you again, and looking forward to seeing you in a future activity.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very
much,
much, Angeliki, for all the organization and to all participants for their attendance.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Thank you, Angeliki. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.